above is actually a quote by E. Stanley Jones, and it says, "A rattlesnake, if cornered, will become so angry it will bite itself. This is exactly what the harboring of hate and resentments against others is, a biting of oneself. We think we are harming others and holding these spites, but the deeper harm is to ourselves." That quote is actually extremely relevant to the topic that I'm here to discuss, which is the topic of forgiveness and learning to heal resentments that you feel towards another person. I actually had an extremely difficult experience with my father, and I just want to come here and discuss how our relationship was as I was a child, how it went to the point of destruction, and how we're in the process of rebuilding it. The picture that you see above is actually a picture of me and my dad. When I was younger, he was an extremely great father. He was the first person who taught me how to ride a bike, how to read, how to write, so he was basically my world. He was also very encouraging in terms of making me an individual person. He encouraged me to write. He encouraged me to pursue creative pursuits like art and things of that sort. So he was kind of my viewpoint of becoming a better person. In the winter of 1999, when I was 5 years old, my father was convicted of manslaughter. And for those of you who are not familiar with what that term means, manslaughter is basically the unlawful killing of a person without malicious intent. I know that sounds awful, but I'm here to just explain what that means and how he got in that position. 5 days after Christmas, my father was with a couple of friends, and he was in the wrong time, in the wrong place, and he was under the influence of alcohol and narcotics. They went to the mountains to shoot some guns, and unfortunately my cousin, Emily, who was 17 years old, asked him to show her how to shoot the gun, and it wasn't locked. So he pressed the trigger, and the bullet went through her abdomen, and within 15 minutes she was dead. And she was only 17 years old. For many years, especially through the process of me becoming a teenager, I was extremely resentful, and it was I felt that I don't want to have anything to do with him because he hurt me. And I felt that that was punishment enough to have him not have a relationship with his own daughter. So I refused his phone calls, I refused his letters, and I refused to visit him for many years. My boyfriend, actually, just recently on Father's Day, he convinced me that it was time to get over my feelings, and it was time to confront my father and restart a relationship with him. It was very difficult, and through so many years of not seeing him, I was afraid that I was going to visit him and that he wasn't going to recognize me and he wasn't going to know who I was. And I was also afraid that I wasn't going to recognize him or even know who he was. Fortunately, when I got there, he immediately came to me, no questions, and he said something that struck a chord with me. And he said, I had always prayed that I was going to get my daughter back. And you can imagine, the emotions that just completely escaped me. And at that time, I knew that I was in the right area at the right time. And it's awful to see your parents in shackles, and it's awful to see them in an orange jumpsuit, but I knew that it was time for me to overcome that adversity and to rebuild my relationship with him. He had mentioned to me that his release date was going to be before October of 2013, so it's really recent. And he said, "Do you want a relationship with me?" And I accepted, and now we're in the process of rebuilding it. We write avidly, he calls me frequently, and I try to visit as much as I can. So the purpose of this, and I hope that the lesson that you've learned, is that resentment is something, even though if you think you're intending on torturing someone with feeling angry towards them, it actually does you more harm than it would ever do them. And that was a lesson that I wish I would have learned years ago. So it's important to forgive, and it's important to move on from those who have hurt you. And I know you guys may not have the same experience, but there is someone in your life, I'm sure, who has in some way betrayed you, whether it's a friend, an ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, or family member. So I just want to encourage you guys to really delve into those relationships and learn to forgive someone for whatever they've done to you. So just to recap, I talked about my relationship with my dad, how it was compromised, and how we're in the process of rebuilding it. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know.